Will somebody tell me if we're supposed to start the program?
Freeman hits the ball. Right field.
Into right field. She is gone.
Oh, what a pass. Doncic, perfection there on the assist.
A little magic from Doncic.
Stafford takes the shoulder, takes a shot downfield. It is caught by Nakua. He picked him on his shoulder and made the catch.
One of a kind player. One of a kind season. Shohei Ohtani starts the 50-50 club.
Coming in on the count. LeBron James at the buzzer.
This game's in the Admiral refrigerator. The door is closed, the lights out. Butter's getting hard, the eggs are cooling, and the jello is jiggling.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the LA Sports Roundup podcast. I'm your host, Mike Andrade, and we are sitting here recording on Thursday, September 11th, 2025. Of course, we are remembering 9/11, 2001. Let's see, about 24 years ago today, 2001. Yeah. Time flies. I remember sitting there. I was in 5th grade. It was about maybe 10 a.m. around that time. And just thinking to myself, what in the hell is going on with this world? I had no idea what was what. I remember asking my mom if the planes were going to come over here. You know, we were in California. I was living in San Bernardino at the time. Obviously, they were not going to come to San Bernardino. But as a 10-year-old, you didn't know any better. You didn't know what was what. And it was something that, as a millennials will always talk about where they were when 9/11 occurred. And it is the most impactful day in our nation's history. And it is something every year we will take a moment of time to reflect on and give remembrance to those who lost their lives. But with that said, let's start talking about our LA teams and the team that played last Sunday at SoFi Stadium, the LA Rams. They had a convincing win against the Houston Texans, 14-9. What a great win to start off the season. The Rams are now 1-0 and pretty much led by their defense. And their defense being led out of a guy that's pretty much out of the universe of Aaron Donald, which is Jared Verse. Jared Verse is the guy that is captaining this defense now, and they really made their imprint on this game. And the Rams defense is going to be something that teams are going to have to reckon with. Now look, the offense looks slow, and that's pretty much in part to guys not playing during the preseason. Obviously, Matthew Stafford and pretty much all of the starters really did not play at all during the preseason, and they're coming into week 1 looking a little rusty, and they're looking to get things gelled into in terms of the offense. Now let's look at Matthew Stafford's stats from Sunday. He threw 21 completions off of 29 attempts for 245 yards. That's really, really good. Considering the fact most of those yards came from the second half as well, because in the first half, the offense wasn't really going at all. They only had 7 points at halftime, and that was off of Kyren Williams' touchdown. But Stafford ended up throwing for 1 touchdown, and the most important thing that I'm looking at here is he had 0 interceptions. Anytime a quarterback can go through a complete game throwing 0 interceptions, you know they had a good day. Especially with Matthew Stafford having new receivers, having a new offense, per se, guys that he needs to integrate into the offense, like Devontae Adams. If you're continuing to throw the football and you have 0 interceptions, hey, you did your job as the quarterback. And he was only sacked 3 times. I remember last season, the offensive line was really going through a revolving door in terms of guys because of injuries. Now, 3 sacks, I think that's about average in a football game. You don't want to go any more further than that, but being sacked 3 times, I think you would take that any day if you throw 0 interceptions. Now, Stafford did make history in Sunday's win. He ended up achieving 60,000 yards, 60,000 passing yards throughout his career in Sunday's win. Congratulations to Matthew Stafford off of an amazing achievement, and no doubt puts him as one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. Now, the Rams didn't completely come out of this win unscathed. Puka Nacua, I believe, during the second offensive drive, was taken out by Texans linebacker Henry Tuitu on a helmet-to-helmet play, and Tuitu was flagged for unnecessary roughness on the play. It opened a gash on Nakua's eye, and blood dripped down on the right side of his face. Nacua said afterwards he didn't know where the blood was coming from, but he ended up getting stitches on the eyelid and was able to come back into the game. Thank God, because there was some worry that he might have had a concussion. If he would have had a concussion in the first game, it would have been like last season where he got hurt. Concussions are no joke, and it probably would have taken him out 2 to 3 games at least for him to get cleared off of that. So thank God Nacua wasn't seriously hurt, and he'll be able to play next Sunday. Now, I want to shout out Jordan Whittington for his plays during this game, and the Rams absolutely screwed him on these plays because he had 2 outstanding plays. One, he had on a kickoff return that went, I believe, about 45 to 50 yards. That was a great kickoff return, and that got sent back because of holding. And then, I believe, what it might have been like the third quarter, Whittington had an amazing play, amazing catch, where again, it got sent back for holding. Rams, they had to have done better on these things because ultimately, they got away with the victory on Sunday, but plays like this are going to cost them victories going down the stretch and into the regular season. And you surely do not want plays like that in the playoffs. The Rams need to do better with penalties because they ultimately screwed themselves. They could have had 21 to 28 points easily, and they could have scored off of those drives had it not been for the turnovers. But again, I believe that's just the offense coming together, and hopefully within time, hopefully next Sunday, they can shore up these things. Now, there was one more play that nearly costed the Rams the game. It was a roughing the passer call on Kobe Turner when C.J. Stroud, about 2 minutes left in the game, attempted about a 30-yard pass, and it was intercepted by the Rams defense, but was called back because Kobe Turner was called for roughing the passer, which pretty much gave the Texans a set of first downs again. But luckily, the Rams redeemed themselves because on the next play, Rams linebacker Braden Fisk was able to punch out the ball and force a fumble to secure the Rams' victory. So that secured the Rams' victory, but next Sunday they're going to be playing the Tennessee Titans, a Titans team that is coming off an embarrassing loss to the Denver Broncos 20-12, and the Rams should be able to capitalize off this Titans team that is trying to get itself together off of quarterback Cameron Ward, Tony Pollard. They're a new-look Titans team, so the Rams should be able to piece themselves back together from this win, continue the momentum, and get another victory, and this time on the road. Now, before we switch subjects here, let's give a shout out to the LA Chargers getting a Week 1 victory against the AFC reigning champion Kansas City Chiefs, the juggernaut Kansas City Chiefs. They got a victory in their Week 1 matchup against them. And you know what? I asked the question a couple weeks ago, is Justin Herbert the guy for the Chargers? But you know what? In the Week 1 victory, he was. Surprising victory for the Chargers, all things considered. So, shout out to them. They're going to be playing the Raiders coming up in their Week 2 matchup. Could they sustain the victory of the momentum of that? Well, let's see. The Raiders are also coming off a victory as well. So, it'll be a good, interesting matchup in their Week 2 game. Alright, switching teams here. Let's start talking a little baseball, and let's start talking about our LA Dodgers. The Dodgers are 82-64, holding the first place record in the NL West. They just swept the Colorado Rockies in a 3-game series, and last night they skunked the Rockies 9-0 off a Mookie Betts grand slam. So getting the sweep, that helped them increase their lead over the Padres in the division. And there's only about 17 games left in the regular season, so it's really getting down to the nit and gritty in the division race. But some positives here. The Dodgers have won 4 games in a row heading into the next series. The next series being in San Francisco against the Giants. They're going to be playing 4 games there. The Giants being 74-72 aren't really in the race for the NL West, although they are above 500, so they're still a good team. The Dodgers really have to be careful going into the series. And there's a lot of concern still with the Dodgers, especially with the bullpen. For example, Michael Kopech last night allowed the bases to be loaded in the 7th inning and ultimately was taken out because there was a lot of concerns that he would give up the lead just like he has in many other games before. There's not a whole lot of trust in Michael Kopech at this point. And if he does what he's continuing to do, he's not going to be a trustworthy guy in the playoffs. And then there's the matter of Roki Sasaki, who continues to rehab in AAA. The club seems to be optimistic about him, but they wanted to dominate in the minor league before bringing him back. But what's working with the Dodgers? Mookie Betts has been extremely hot lately. Last night, he went 4 for 5, including the grand slam, which I mentioned, and an RBI double. He's been driving in multiple runs in several games now. Teoscar went yard again last night, homering and showing power after a prolonged cold streak. Teoscar just needs to stay consistent. If he can get back to a level that he was at last season in the postseason, then the Dodgers are going to be in good hands. But there's some weak spots and risks. Some inconsistency remains. Games where they haven't been able to break through and tight losses and low-scoring affairs, showing that they can be dominant but also giving it up as well, especially when guys like Michael Kopech are on the mound, and it just gets really dicey at that point. We've seen against the Orioles where they gave up a couple leads, and it just, honestly, it's demoralizing. And you really don't want to be playing like that in September. You want to be playing the best baseball possible now. But, like I said, they have won 4 games in a row, and they're going to be building up momentum. Sweeping the Rockies gives the Dodgers not only wins, but confidence. It helps them build momentum going into matchups against tougher teams. Although the Dodgers do have a little bit of a comfortable lead now, with some pressure off, there's still many games left, 17 games left, and honestly, there's not a whole lot of margin for error with this team. You can see that this team is good, and obviously they're a championship level team, but they take their foot off the brakes. And when they do that, it's not a good thing for the Dodgers. And the Padres are not out of this division race. They can catch up real quick. Now, what's going to be really important for the Dodgers right now is how the starters are going to fare against tougher opponents, especially on the road. Consistency in the rotation will be key. The bullpen stability. With games being close and playoff spots on the line, how can we trust closing pitchers to get the job done? And especially with getting runs when we need them too. It's all going to matter coming down to the stretch here in October. And especially health. Players returning like Tommy Edman. Staying healthy will be the key figure for this team going down into October. Guys, October is 2 weeks away from now. Or 3 weeks, sorry. 3 weeks away from now. It is not that far off. 3 weeks of the regular season, and we are back into playoff baseball. That is crazy to think about. So, getting momentum back, staying consistent for the Dodgers will be the key going into the next 3 weeks. Alright, so let's talk a little bit of basketball here. And last week, we went into the Kawhi Leonard aspiration tree company scandal with the LA Clippers and Steve Ballmer. A huge mess going on in the land of the LA Clippers and in the NBA. Now, Ramona Shelburne did have that interview with Steve Ballmer, and something came out where Aspiration, the company that is in the midst of all this scandal, actually offered the Clippers to pay almost double the $550 million Intuit paid for the naming rights for the arena that Steve Ballmer built, which is now the Intuit Dome. They were turned down by Ballmer because they wanted to go with a long-lasting company. Now, if that doesn't tell you what was at stake there, then what does? Ballmer knew that this company was not going to be for the long running, and he knew that having Aspiration as the name for the building was going to be bad news going forward. There's a lot at play here. Steve Ballmer definitely came off as being victimized in that interview by Ramona Shelburne, saying that investors robbed him, that he had no doing in such part of the Kawhi Leonard scandal here. But I think he's not letting on to what he definitely knows. He's trying to play the victim himself. Now, if that doesn't sound bad, guess what? It gets worse. Right now, I'm going to read you a column here on Yahoo Sports. It's by a writer named Chris Quick, a contributing writer. And he's going to write about Dennis J. Wong, the chairman of LA Clippers, who reportedly invested $1.99 million in the failing Aspiration company days before Kawhi Leonard payment. So the payment being the $27 million Aspiration was going to pay towards Kawhi Leonard. Here's the article. The Los Angeles Clippers and owner Steve Ballmer are already under investigation by the NBA after a report emerged suggesting the team and Ballmer supplied impermissible benefits to superstar Kawhi Leonard to try to circumvent the salary cap. Both the Clippers and Ballmer vehemently denied those reports, claiming they did not funnel money to Leonard through Aspiration, a company in which Ballmer invested. Those denials were called into question Thursday after new reporting by journalist Pablo Torre. On the latest episode of Torre's podcast, Pablo Torre Finds Out, he detailed a surprising investment by Clippers co-owner Dennis Wong into Aspiration that may have been used to pay Kawhi Leonard. Torre, who broke the original story, once again uncovered legal documents that show Wong, Ballmer's former college roommate, invested $1.99 million in Aspiration through a company called DEA 88 Investments just 9 days before Leonard received a $1.75 million payment from the company. The investment came from Wong, while Aspiration was in the midst of serious cash flow troubles and was already late on one quarterly payment to Leonard. Torre spoke with two former members of Aspiration who detailed the company's financial struggle, and at the time Wong's investment. Torre's first claim Aspiration was broke at the same time Wong made the investment in December 2022. Torre made the argument that at the point Wong should have known Aspiration was failing due to Ballmer's involvement, the company letting go of key members of staff, and the fact that Wong's daughter worked for Aspiration. Despite that, Wong decided to invest an amount of money close to what Leonard was set to be paid just days before Leonard's company, KL2 Aspire LLC, received its payment. One of Torre's sources pointed out that, Given the financial hardship the company was facing, a $2 million investment at that point wasn't nearly enough to save the company, casting more suspicion on the amount Wong gave to Aspiration as it was going under. Aspiration filed for bankruptcy in March. Torrey's second source, who worked for the finance department at Aspiration, said they believed Wong put that money to ensure Leonard got paid. It really looked like the Clippers, through Dennis Wong, put $2 million in order for Aspiration to be able to make the $1.75 million payment to Kawhi. That's what it looks like to me. It should be noted that Torrey's second source was not confirming that's what happened, but speculating based on evidence they perceived while working in the finance department of Aspiration. Alright, so basically to summarize, that Dennis Wong's daughter was working in the company Aspiration while they were sinking. Dennis Wong knew that the company had financial struggles, and he basically invested $2 million of his own money into Aspiration, ensuring that Kawhi Leonard would get paid. Meanwhile, he is the chairman of the LA Clippers. Steve Ballmer is the owner, and then of course you have the general manager as well, but Dennis Wong is the chairman. He is affiliated, he is working for the Clippers, and he invested $2 million of his own money into this company. This is not all coincidence here, guys. There is a lot more to this story, and it's only going to continue to build and build and build. I'm pretty much convinced that the Clippers had their hands in the pot the entire time, and they were ensuring that Kawhi Leonard was going to get paid under the table. This is all seemingly what it is now. Kawhi Leonard was basically being paid under the table, and now there's a full investigation into this. Not good for the LA Clippers, not good whatsoever. But NBA Commissioner Adam Silver did speak about the situation in itself. In his first public statements about the situation, Silver said on Wednesday that he and the league must let the investigation run its course, and he also said that if the investigation finds that cap circumvention did occur, he would have the ability to impose significant punishments. He said, "My powers are very broad. I have full range of financial penalties, draft picks, suspensions, etc. I have very broad powers in these situations." Basically, let's look at what he did in the Donald Sterling situation. In that, he basically laid the hammer down on Donald Sterling, banning him for life. Now, look at nothing like that is going to happen even close to that, but there's going to be significant ramifications if the NBA finds strong evidence against the Clippers in this situation. I fully believe that draft picks will be taken in some measure, maybe salary cap. They're going to be taking away money from them. It is not a good situation for the Clippers to be in, and they basically need to be on their knees, hoping and praying that nothing significant comes out of this, because if it does, Adam Silver is not afraid to lay the hammer down, and we've seen it before. I would fully suspect that the NBA's investigation would wrap up within the next 2 to 3 weeks, because in about a month the NBA season is going to be picking up again, and you're going to be fully into swing with the preseason. And so I would suspect that the investigation will be wrapped up by then. It's not going to take a very long time for them to find evidence, I believe. And so maybe about another week or so we're going to see more evidence come out, and I think about in a 2 or 3 week timeline we're going to see what's going to be happening here in this situation. Alright, so to end today's podcast, I wanted to kind of just basically kind of give a little bit of thoughts on the situation that's happening in the country, especially with the shooting of Charlie Kirk. I know this is kind of off into left field now because this podcast is about LA sports, but myself, Mike Andrade, the host, I wanted just to give a little bit of my own thoughts and opinions about this, and it's in no way to be political. It's in no way to give a political stance on the situation. I think where I'm coming from is more of a humanistic stance, and hopefully the viewers can view it that way and not take it the wrong way in a sense of thinking that I'm taking one side or another. You know, obviously finding out about the shooting yesterday was horrific. Whether you agree with him or not, he was a very polarizing man, but effective in what he did. Whether you agreed with him or not, you know, he did have a lot of support in the youth, and that's what basically his objective was to take these topics, these very controversial topics, and to talk about them in mass with people. Now, obviously, he was a very right-winged guy and had a lot of very strong opinions on certain matters, and he was not afraid to let people know where he stood. And obviously, where we're in tough times where people are very sensitive to these topics and matters, and people are going to take very high offense to these things that he was saying. But no means did he ever, and nobody ever deserves to have their life taken from them in that matter or in that matter at all. It's horrible. It's horrible. I feel for his family. I feel for his children, his wife, regardless of where you are politically. And I know he has said some very disgusting things about transgender people. He has said some very disgusting things about minority groups in general. I understand that. But people get caught up in what's left and what's right, and just typically forget about the humanistic side, that somebody was murdered yesterday, and in a horrible fashion. Looking at that video on Twitter, I regret even opening up that, because it was so gruesome, very gruesome. And to me, it sickens me anytime we have any gun violence in this world. And we can get into the topic of whether gun violence is, going to be done in this country in terms of what they're going to do about it. But, that's a very broad topic, and I'm not going to get into that here. I just want to talk about the horrible fashion, the way he was murdered. And, I am a liberal myself. I am not afraid to admit that. I'm very left in the way I think, but also we have to just think about things are not just left or right in this country. We have to have a very humanistic side of when people get murdered. It's very horrible to see, very horrible to witness in this country, as it is just not great times in this country. And I'll wrap it up there. Those are my thoughts and opinions on it. Basically, my condolences to his family and to anybody that was affected out there in Utah. I want to extend my condolences. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning into today's podcast. I know it took a little swing there at the end, but I just felt like I just needed to just get my mind, say whatever was on my mind off my chest in that situation. And there's trash trucks in the back. Sorry. But thank you again for listening. I appreciate everyone that tunes into Lace 'em Up Sports, Wrestling with Ryan, LA Sports Roundup podcast, and I appreciate everyone's continued support into everything that we do. So until next time, guys, thank you very much, and we'll see you.